Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Alhamdulillahi Rabbil Alameen. Wassalatu wassalamu ala rasulihi. Amma ba'du. I greet our listening audience. Assalamu alaikum wa Ramadan Mubarak. I welcome you to our Mali Ramadan sessions for students. We're here every morning during Ramadan, during this month of fasting, at 8 a.m. Eastern Standard Time. We're live here on Facebook, and we're on the webinar. Tomorrow, we'll be just on the webinar, where we will have discussions, a review, and discussion of what we have presented during the week. The dial-in number is here. You can dial in on your phone and the access code. Put in the access code. You can join in on the meeting on your phone if you like. If you have any questions on what we went over, comments or questions, what we have gone over during the week, we start tomorrow at 8 a.m. Eastern Standard Time. Last week we had nice, good, long discussion, very fruitful discussion. Inshallah, perhaps we will have the same or more this week. If you want to share your screen and be on the webinar, go to MuslimAmericanLogic.ning.com. Scroll down to class information. You'll see my name, Salim Movement. Click on the highlight. Click on the highlight, and that will get you started to get to the webinar. Just follow the prompts after that. That's tomorrow at 8 o'clock. We'll have discussion. So today we're going to talk about, and we're concluding our talk about Basher. And we're going to be looking at Basher in terms of its meaning. We know from the dictionary when we started, Basher was defined as the outer skin, Zahir, the outer skin, and Batin, the inner skin. The outer skin we have what we call the thin skin, and we have thick skin. We will discuss. The inner skin is the idea of flesh and blood, and the word mortal relates to the inner skin. Then we're going to look at the concept of circumcision. Circumcision is the removal of the outer skin, exposing the inner skin. The Western idea and the Islamic idea in the meaning of circumcision. The removal of the skin. So we're going to start today with the source, Ibn Arabi. Ibn Arabi. And we know Ibn Arabi is another tafsir source, more philosophical than the other sources. We're looking at different sources each day. Grammar sources, tafsir sources, for what we're studying on this verse, on the verses. So today is Ibn Arabi. We're going to look at Ibn Arabi and some notes from Imam W.D. Muhammad, because as students you should be reading in the Ramadan session book. Reading in the Ramadan session book, and tomorrow in our review we'll make some connections, and there's some things to point out to the students about the layout of the book, Imam W.D. Muhammad, so forth and so on. So we'll look at the notes that coincide with the reading, and then we'll go from there. So we start, Bismillahirrahmanirrahim, Qul, إنما أنا بشر مثلكم يوحى إلي أنما إلهكم إله واحد فاستقيموا إليه واستغفروه وويل للمشركين. This is the verse we're looking at. And for the students, I know by now I don't have to translate for you. So looking at Ibn Arabi now. So Ibn Arabi, in the parentheses, he's commenting on the first part of the verse. Kul innama ana basharun mithlukum. He's going to comment on this. So as you're reading from this parenthesis to this parenthesis, he's commenting here on the first part, and he didn't put in parentheses, but he's also commenting on a little of the part that comes before annama ilahukum. But we refer back to this, we keep referring back to this as he's commenting. Refer back to the parentheses to help keep your reference for what is being said, especially someone like Ibn Arabi. Yes, you want to know what is being said, what he is saying, what is he talking about. So, قُلْ إِنَّمَا أَنَا بَشَرٌ مِثْلُكُمْ I. That is to say, إِنِّي مِنْ جِنْسِكُمْ, that I am from your origin. I have the same origin as you have. أُنَاسِبُكُمْ فِي الْبَشَرِيَّةِ, and I am relating to you. I relate to you. I have the same origin, and I relate to you fil bashariya, in terms of bashariya. Now, we see bashariya and bashar. This is in reference to bashar. So I relate to you with sensitivities, we're going to learn, and as a flesh and blood, sensitive human being. That's how I relate to you. I don't relate to you as an angel. I come to you as one of you. And this is Muhammad the Prophet speaking. It's relating to Muhammad the Prophet, praise and peace be upon him. Wal mumathalati, and the likeness, the resemblance and likeness, and now iyati, in terms of the type, the category, the classification of beings. I am of your classification. I'm not of a different classification. It's very important for us to understand this as Muslim first, and then we should understand this as in religion. That Muhammad the Prophet, he's a flesh and blood man carrying the same sensitivities, living in the same kind of skin that all men have, all people have. He's of the category, the classification of a human being. for orientating yourself towards Him, for your human orientation, and in terms of your humanity, and in terms of your mixture. Now, this comes to mind when we're talking about mixture. We could be talking in terms of the creation itself, all creatures itself, in terms of their mixture, their various mixtures, or the mixture of the basher. When we talk about the mixture of the basher. Now, I'm going to take the word mixture, I'm going to pull it out and talk about it, then we'll just put it back. This word may be a little confusing in the way it's written here. The other words it's written with. We have this idea that Muhammad the Prophet, the President, peace be upon him, he married into the tribes. Arabia and the world itself have many people who associated or made up of tribes. Tribes is family. People who identify with the same origin. Let's say we all have the same grandfather, so we belong to a certain family. We all have the same great-grandfather. Now the family may be a little bigger, so forth and so on. We identify with a particular ancestor that we all come from as a family group, cousins, first cousins, second cousins, so forth and so on. So everyone has that. So this was very strong in Arabia, or that's how they identified themselves, through tribal life. So the story is that Muhammad the Prophet, the President, peace be upon him, married into the different tribes in order to unite the tribes. But if he is the messenger for all of humanity, in order to unite humanity, then he would have to marry a lot of people. If that's the method of uniting humanity. Now, personally, I don't think that's the method of uniting humanity, is by consciously marrying into the various mixtures of people. Or perhaps it's a sign showing that, yes, he is a basher, just like everyone else. And he's showing that marrying into the different tribes is not something that is against the rule, against the laws of humanity. If you are putting it back, the mixture back into the verse now, it's an orientation for humanity, that we're all of the same origin, of likeness and kind. We're all of the same kind. And yes, we have our mixture, our differences socially, not to despise or put one superior than the other due to his createdness. But we all have the common objective of orientating ourselves to the way that Allah wants us to be. In doing so, we may marry into other families, into other tribes, into other clans. Or we may not. And we know Muslims have a problem with this. Muslims have a problem with it. After 1,400 years of him demonstrating in his life, marrying into various tribes, we still have that problem as Muslim. Yes. We're not there yet. More to make a note, more to discuss further tomorrow. So I am relating to you, this Kun, I am relating to you, all of humanity, not to just you Arabs, in which he's a part of. Yes, he's an Arab, but he said, I'm relating to you. He's speaking to all of humanity, not just the Arab. That's where it starts. And I am ubayinukum, I am making it clear to you with an alarming and awakening inspiration upon the idea of a clear, concise concept, idea of oneness, Tawheed. Yes. Li tariki suluki, for the way of your behavior. See, in context. I'm reading in context. Yes, the Tawheed is not just Allah, we've discovered. The Tawheed is the oneness that scientifically speaking, the intellectuals, through scientific investigation, experimentation, observation, have come to the conclusion of Tawheed. In all of creation, therefore, in the context of what we're saying, there has to be the Tawheed of humanity that leads us to the idea and conclusion that Allah is one. There's only one God, one Allah. Allah is a word you can't even write in the plural. You can't write in the dual. You can't write the word Allah in the dual. You can't write the word Allah in the plural. You can't even write the word Allah attached to a pronoun. You don't read Allah. There is no such thing as my Allah. My Allah, your Allah. There's no such thing as Allah in the dual. Allah in the plural. Yes. We come to that conclusion. In the language. You can't read it in the language. Yes. So this is clear. I'm bringing to you clear, alarming inspiration. We could say, due to my being, let's go back to the parentheses, due to my being, we're talking about Basharon. Due to my being a Basharon. Now, we've gone through sources about this word, and we continue about this word. This whole week is about Basharon. Due to that. Fatasilu bi. Then attach yourself to me. Attach yourself with me. then connect with me. In terms of uh, in terms of characteristic relationship. Yes. And mujanasati al-bashariyati, and human origin. My creation is of the same human origin that you have. So associate me with that. Don't look at me any other kind of way. Yes. And we spoke this week about how we're to see him. And how are we to see him? We are to see him as a human being, not God, not godly, as a human being. So we have in our declaration of becoming a Muslim and accepting the Islamic way of life. We have a declaration, and there's a ritual that we have in accepting or becoming a member of, you could say, the Islamic community, the Muslim community worldwide. And the declaration is in two parts. The first part is that there is nothing worthy of worship except Allah. There is no God except Allah. And the second part of the declaration is Muhammad is a messenger of Allah. And in this declaration is mubin, is clarity. And the clarity is the human being is not God. Muhammad is not God. Muhammad is not in the person of God. Muhammad is not half man, half God. Muhammad is the messenger of God, a flesh and blood human being that has received inspiration from God. It's clear from the beginning. And this idea of, we call it the Shahada, this declaration. And Shahada is the same word, because it's on my mind, I want to say it, is the same word for martyr. Shaheed. Martyr is Shaheed is the martyr. And Shaheed is the word meaning witness, the one who witnessed. So where's the connection of this declaration, witnessing, and martyr? That you are willing, making this declaration, and if you are sincere in it, and you've come to this conclusion in your own being, then you're willing to give your life for it. You will die for it before you would give it up. Yes. That's martyrdom, the correct martyrdom in Islam. And there are many martyrs that we have under the leadership of the Honorable Elijah Muhammad. Because even though we have to make corrections. And we have to make corrections, and we have to evolve to the place, Makfila, to the place of forgiveness. A higher station in life. The more knowledge we have, the higher we move up in the station of life. So as we learn more and read more, we don't look back and condemn our forefathers, our foreparents. We look back and forgive because we're living we've been elevated to a station of forgiveness. And reading the Quran clearly, for those of you who like to throw your little stones, if you have read the Quran, and if you're the scholar you say you are, then you have read the verse of those who said, I've heard a caller calling to faith, and we believe without evidence. We believe without evidence, and we're willing to put our life on the line without having knowledgeable, scientific, in fact, they couldn't even read or write in English. But they took Shahada without evidence and was willing, and some did, to give their life for it. Yes. But later, yes, and even in the face of being ostracized, being attacked by police, the government, and others, all based upon what? All based upon faith without evidence. From the leader on down. Yes. Now we read, we comprehend, we want to condemn. Instead of saying that's where we come from. And I'm not ashamed of it. I'm proud of it. You can't shame me from my humanity, out of my humanity. The Arabs didn't have evidence. When Muhammad the Prophet came to them with clear inspiration, they didn't have evidence. And they took Shahada right away without evidence. Now we have people with scientific evidence. Scientific evidence. But won't show their face in society. They won't mix. Having the fears of mixing. We keep our history intact. Keep the history intact. That's why it's our story. We keep it intact without any form of embarrassment. Yes, because when you look at the whole story, it's a wonderful story of the history of a group of people in America, where they started from and where we are today. Wonderful story, if we keep it intact, just the way it is. Wonderful story. Coming from a people like that, couldn't read or write. to the same people who are now teaching and learning, and those same group of scholars have the audacity to say to me, you have no business teaching Ibn Arabi. That's too much. You shouldn't give them that. Same people. In one mouth, make fun, throw their little rocks and make fun of the people in the past. Then turn around and say you shouldn't be doing that. Beautiful story. Where are we at now? It's Ramadan. So here, where's the example of what I'm saying? The example is in the life of Muhammad the Prophet. I'm attaching myself to his life, to his kind, to his resemblance. In his human origin, his human creation, in order that you be guided by the light of Tawheed, by the light of oneness, Tawheed, the oneness of humanity. Wal Wahyi al Mufid, and the beneficial inspiration for the clarity of religion. This statement is big for the people of religion to read. When I'm not even looking outside of the religious people, I'm talking about the religious, the people who claim religion. This is a very important concept, idea that we're talking about here. That the messenger of Allah is a human being, Bashariya. He's a human being of the same stock and kind that all human beings originate from Adam to Muhammad. All of them are seen as human beings. He's a human being that we be guided by the light of Tawheed, the light of Tawheed in creation first. And look at each religion. Look at each division in religion, all the religions. We fail. We come short. We come short of this concept of Tawheed. Therefore, in the social life, it influences the social life of man. Do we really understand and have come into the light of Tawheed on Mount Arafat, where all the people of the world are represented? Really? Do the women fall into the category of Tawheed? Or are they treated as a separate creation? Yes. Look at, we can point out in religion, especially in America. I know people throughout the world. I'm looking now. So people, Muslims throughout the world is seeing this. So I have to be conscious I'm talking to the world. Even though I'm an African American, talking to African Americans. But I'm at the same time following the way of Muhammad the Prophet, an Arab speaking to Arabs, but really speaking to the whole humanity. We're talking universal ideas put in the language perhaps of the parochial, personal idea. Yes. For the clarity of religion. And we could go on and on about this. We're not there yet. With all the evidence and knowledge we have accumulated, we're not there yet. I will show you all something tomorrow. to show you we're not there. Speaking to humanity without pointing a finger, we're not there. And this is the model. Muhammad the Prophet is the model. He's the model for any to have hope and faith in God. وَتَسْلُكُوا سَبِيلَ الْحَقِّ. And in order that you'll be guided, we're connecting. In order that you'll be guided, and in order that you behave, that you walk straight along the path of universal reality, which he's saying is put in the voice of Muhammad the Prophet, Arrafani, which he taught me. He showed me. This is the example. Muhammad the Prophet is the example. In his saying, Annama ilahukum ilahun wahidun, that your God is one God. There is no associations that's to be given to him in al-wujud, in any scientific finding that you may bring up. We're looking at it from the human side, not just from the side. We're not talking just from the side of faith without evidence. When we say al-wujud, we're talking now about evidence. As the scientists will say, the intellectuals will say, the thinkers will say, according to my findings. Yes, there is no God except God, according to my findings. And the only thing that I have to really research, I have to start with creation itself. So if you look, wipe your eyes, they get tired, watery, wipe them and look again. And wipe them and look again. And according to the finding, the scientific findings that's hidden, the body of knowledge that's hidden beneath the surface of this material world, we find that there's only one God, that your God is one God, and he has no associate. Yes. Not to the fan club in religion, not to the one who belong to the gang, not gang membership. Al-wujud, we're talking about scientific investigation with proof. Yes. This is why I say the Quran should be taught as a science, from the perspective of science. Not faith alone, not ritual alone. Islam is not ritual alone. Islam begins and is enriched in the science. The word for it is ilm, alamin. And Allah is Rabbul Alamin, the Lord of all sciences. This we find in the wujud. Fastakimu. Now, I'm not giving this translation as some may see it. I'm not being so strict in the translation of what I'm saying and what I'm doing. I'm doing more than that. Fastakimu, right? Then be upright, bisabati, in the establishment upon faith. Yes. So this idea of being upright is being upright based upon your scientific findings. I'm putting it in that context. We saw the context from the other scholars. Now we're putting it in a different context with the words that we have here from Ibn Arabi. It's a little different. Ibn Arabi is a little different. The light is expanding. So in your establishment upon faith, yes, and a sakina, and being at peace, being at rest with your conclusion and your certainty. Fi tawajjuhi ilay, in your orientation towards him or towards it. Without there being any deviation or corruption to any form of falsehood, especially, I'm going to say, especially two that's dominating. One is superstition, is batil. Superstition, because we are flooded with superstitious ideas in religion. That's corruption, deviation, superstition. It's in the writings, it's in the book. People who are very superstitious prior to taking the Shahada without evidence. There are those with evidence. Go do the research and gain your evidence. But without evidence, that's how they come. They come from a very superstitious background or livelihood. And so when they begin to study the religion and read scripture, they read that superstition into it. Yes. That's one. Batil. The other we find, because I'm speaking to where I'm at, and I'm showing you, and I'm reading it and showing where I'm at for the students. The other is racism. Yes, it's batil. Racism is batil. And because we come from a society flooded with racism, the perpetrators and the victims, their souls have been flooded with racism, that when they read the books, when they read the scripture, they read the racism into it. Batil. And it corrupts. Can let it go. Yes. And another problem in religion is at-turuki al-mufarrika, various paths. What do we call them? We call them sects. Yes. And each sect claiming their own idea of religion. Yes. You can almost hear one sect correcting me now, even about Shahada. And spend the next 5 years on the correction of Shahada. وَلَزَيْغِ الالتفات, and without, or there is no turning or deviating. By turning, there's no deviation and no deviation. By turning away or turning towards something else. Or being inclined towards your own personal opinions and ideas. Actually, opinions and lies. وَاسْتَغْفِرُوهُ, and seek forgiveness of him بِالتَّنَصُّلِ, عن الهيئات المادية, by removing the materialistic forms. Which is, all of these are problems in religion. Materialistic forms, the material form, the physical forms. And we know seeing God in the physical form, seeing even Muhammad the Prophet in the physical form, is a problem to all these deviations we have in religion. So even he says, don't make pictures of me. Don't show me in the form of a picture. Don't make the same mistake that people made in religion before me. So we obey. We don't show pictures of Muhammad the Prophet. We don't show him in a materialistic form. But even though we're to have material and spiritual social life. See the connection as we go. But yet, we have those in religion because of the influences that we've talked about, that we've come to Bible, that we bring to religion. We try to define and describe him in such a materialistic way that it will give one people a closer identity, a closer relationship, a more superior relationship than all the other people, because he fits into the identity of my family. Great mistake that has been made in religion. I'm talking about religion as a whole. And we see the damage that it has caused. The human atrocities that man has perpetrated over another man and trying to justify it through religious knowledge, religious faith, some form of religious orientation that gives them the permission. Throughout the world, not one people, throughout all people, throughout the world. So don't think I'm picking out one religious group. I'm talking religion in its wholeness. Yes. And the freedom from, seek forgiveness. By removing these materialistic forms and freedom from the human characteristics that have been influenced by these forms. The basher. Yeah, through the form of basher. Through the makeup of the basher, I should say. So seek forgiveness in order that he cover it up by the light of his of his characteristics, of his attributes. These human attributes you have taken on. And I have to say in this light, because we're going to see a relationship to it, that's based upon these religious ideas that's really volatile and corrupt. Seek forgiveness, volatile and corrupt. These human characteristics. Then seek forgiveness. Rise to the station in life that shows forgiveness. In order that he covers up with the light of his attributes, the highest body of knowledge that we can attain is the attributes of Allah that we have in our human life, though we're not God. Yes. It would hide the sins, the mistakes that we have made in our own human identifications. He would cover it up with the light of his attributes. Would cover up the mistakes that we have made in our own human identifications and social relationships. If we just follow Muhammad the Prophet as the model. Alhamdulillahi Rabbil Alameen. So let's take a look at Imam W.D. Muhammad. And looking at this concept of Bashar that we're talking about. That's Ibn Arabi. It's Ibn Arabi. He gives a big thought-provoking concept of Bashar. So Imam W.D. Muhammad, in his writing, I'm going to give the notes and we can give more detailed discussion of it tomorrow. Join in tomorrow. So we're talking about the outer skin. Now we'll show connections, and I want you all to do it. Think about the connections of all the sources now. We're concluding on all the sources that we have read. Come down to looking at and studying Imam W.D. Muhammad. It's a lot to take a look at. We're doing this in a week, but it's a lot. So he's explaining the idea of skin. Now he speaks about the outer skin and the inner skin. The zahir, that's the outer skin, the apparent skin, and the batin, that's the inner. We said the adama. We have the word adama, the inner skin, blood, adama. That's why I was saying we see the word blood in adama, flesh and blood. They're both flesh. On the outer skin, we have two ideas and concepts that we speak of, is the thin skin and the thick skin. The thin skin, we say, is very sensitive. And if a person has thin skin, we say that they're a very sensitive person. Sensitive to ideas, even. Concepts, ideas. I'm speaking from it, but as I'm doing Ibn Arabi and others, I'm speaking what I'm seeing from it also, from the Imam. You have to go read the English. I shouldn't have to read English to you. I read Arabic to you because you're learning Arabic. I don't have to read English to you. You can read the English and then come and let's look at the notes. They're easily excitable. Yes. Like water. Water is very sensitive. And water is easily excitable. You throw a small pebble in the water and you see the waves, not the waves, but the word. But you can see the influence of the rock hitting the water. You can see a net that will light on the water, and you can see the influence of the net. Something as light as a net. You can see the influence. It's easily excitable. Like the skin. The skin is very easily excitable. Yes. And we know we have hair. We have hair on the skin, not covered like the animal, but there's hair on the skin. And we know the skin is so sensitive. See, the hair has no feeling. The feeling is not in the hair. That's why we can get a haircut and we don't feel anything. You can't go get a bone cut. You can't cut the bones, they cut the hair. There's no pain. There's no feeling in hair. It has no feeling. So when you touch the hair on your arm, there's hair on the arm. If you just touch the hair on the arm, the feeling is in the skin. Very sensitive. The skin is very sensitive. It knows when something is close to it. Because when it touches the hair lets the skin know there's something that's very close without touching the skin. It excites the skin. It's impressionable. This all we're talking about the basher. Very impressionable. Yes, he's so impressionable that we said Satan can give him a visit. Very subtly can Satan visit him and make suggestions to him and influence him to battle, to corrupt, to have a corrupt mind, a corrupt soul in religion. Because he's so impressionable. He's that clay. It's that clay that's not hard. Very impressionable. You touch it, you see your fingerprint in it. Yes. You have made an impression in it, and you see your own impression that you have made on the clay. Especially if we talk, what was it? Silly putty? Silly putty. Yeah, silly putty. Yes. He allows his heart to come into the picture. Now, this is how sensitive the person becomes. He allows his heart, his sentimental heart, to come into the picture. And he comes back to the nature of the heart. All of this is through being so sensitive, being a basher. So Muhammad the Prophet, who's very sensitive, more sensitive than many, let's say, he's not different. He's just highly sensitive, so sensitive that revelation, inspiration comes to him that doesn't come to others because of his sensitivities. Yes. You can't be hard. You have to be very sensitive. When you read Quran, you can't be very hard with it. You have to be very sensitive with it. You have to be very sensitive with the book, very sensitive with the reading, in order that Allah inspire you. If you go in there with a hard thinking, a hard mind, already have reached conclusions, already have your mindset, already have been influenced by what the world have given you, and you're going to read that into the Quran, and next thing you know, you have a religion full of superstitious people, a religion full of racist people, because you're not sensitive to what God is saying. And there's thick skin, the one who has thick skin. We say if it's thick, he's insensitive, he's hard. You can't influence me. My mind is made up, and you cannot influence me like a callus. You know, you get the callus or the corn. We call them corn. The corn on the toe. You touch it, it has no feeling. Or callus on the hand that's dried up. There's no fluid in it. It's dry skin, hard, no feelings, insensitive. They do not give themselves. These are the ideas now. We're talking about Basher. They do not give themselves to any kinds of checks. Yes, they'll become hard. And both ideas of Saul Solomon. So we start with Saul Solomon, we're connecting. They'll become hard. Vessel rocked hard. And this person, this type of person we find in the intellectual world who do not reach conclusions. They do not come to final conclusions. They continue to explore and research. Yes, it's very important. Exploring and research and looking for findings, wujud, but never come to a conclusion. They never come to the conclusion, Kul huwa Allahu ahad. They never come to that conclusion. Keep researching, keep looking. And many of us have become people like that. I'm talking directly to my associates. We sit and have meetings, and every meeting is a brainstorming meeting. We never reach conclusions. We don't have objectives. We have a meeting with no objectives, and a second meeting to come back to see how are we doing in reaching the objective. We have teachers that teach with no objective for the student and no way to come and check to see if the student, how far are they along in reaching the objective of the teaching. We just keep teaching with no conclusion. All of our work and conclusion is based on some material acquisition. But it's not in our human aspirations. We just intellectually talk. But Mali is a little different, because if you're a student of Mali listening, all of you are invited to listen. And this may be a motivational speech for many, but to the Mali student, it's not a motivational speech. Because I'm going to come and check to see how well did you hear it? Did I reach you with it? I have to look at myself, look at the students. Did you understand what I said? Show me you understood what I said. Show me the connection with the Imam and the other sources. Show me that you did something. Let me write something down today. And then let's keep going. I'm gonna come back and look at what you're writing today from the Quran, from your learnings, to see how well you've progressed over the next 6 months. You've been here 2 years. Let's look at your writing and see if you made progress. Let me drill you, test you, ask you questions to see your progress, and that you can see your own progress. Because there's an objective that we have. Our objective is to learn how to read the Quran with comprehension for yourself and apply it to your life where you're at. That's the objective. Let's see how far we're along the road of reaching this objective. What conclusions can we make at this point? Yes. But yes, though they have a passion for knowledge, the intellectuals, they have a passion for knowledge, but it carries them in the flow of flames, making the connections again with the jinn. Because there is no conclusion for the fire. There's nothing checking the fire. It goes unchecked. Thereby, he does not reach the conclusion of Tawheed in God, in Tawheed, in humanity, in Tawheed, in creation, so forth and so on. He doesn't come to that conclusion. Yes. In religion, yes. In science, yes, I said yes. They come to that conclusion in science, but do they come to that conclusion in religion? Many things we do in science, but we separate it. We separate science from religion. That's the outer skin, thick, thin, and thick. The inner skin is more of the flesh and blood that we term mortal. Yes. And the mortal, the inner skin, is sensitive also. It's very sensitive. And we have the inner skin, we call it flesh. When we cut the outer skin and the inner skin show, we say flesh. Yes. We've been so influenced by the color of the outer skin. In religion, we try to attribute some form of superiority to the color of the outer skin. Muhammad the prophet has said, no, in the mixture of people, in the mixture of the colors, I'm a Bessel just like you. All of you. If you black and cold, I'm a basher just like you. If you white as snow, I'm a basher just like you. If you're somewhere in between, I'm a basher just like you. But look what has crept into religion in terms of basher, in terms of tawheed. So you take the blackest one who claims superiority and blackness. You cut him, you see the flesh, he's not black anymore. So one skin, but there's a sign. Sure, there's a sign. So the inner skin we call flesh. They're both flesh. But they're both sensitive. The most sensitive flesh, or we could say there's the flesh that's very sensitive, is called the heart. The heart is a piece of flesh. And it's very, very sensitive. Yes. And being a mortal, being a flesh and mortal, we use the term mortal in the idea of knowing and having the possibilities of danger. Really, mortality, mortal, dealing with death. There's possibilities of death, harm. This is mortal. And we can see this in the concept of taqwa. Yes, taqwa. The mortal has to have taqwa because he has to be conscious of the possibilities of any dangers, and he has to protect and preserve himself from those dangers. The soul is very sensitive, but it's not flesh. We don't think of the soul as flesh. We think of the heart as flesh. Well, the heart is flesh. It's a piece of flesh. Yes. That pumps the blood throughout the body. And it's the outer flesh that helps protect and preserve the inner flesh due to its sensitivities. Now, I'm saying this in note form. We have further discussions tomorrow because the Imam is saying a lot, and I could go on for another hour. I should, but I'm not going to. So in this idea of See the relationship in the two flesh. They're both sensitive, but the outer flesh is a protection for the inner flesh. You know, we'll get to it. We'll get to it. I still have the notes here to get to it. Now we have the concept of circumcision. Circumcision is the removal of the outer flesh that exposes the inner flesh. The sensitive skin, he's given it in the symbolic form of circumcision. But the act of circumcision is to remove is the removal of the outer skin. The sensitive skin, the world gave before the second breath. We call it the foreskin. The foreskin. That's the first skin. It's the removal of the foreskin. Yes. So in the social context, it's the sensitive, the outer skin, the sensitive skin the world gave you. Now you know the world, especially in Western philosophy, in Western psychology, they give us the idea that man is born inferior in his flesh. The flesh is weak and inferior. Yes. It's weak and inferior. And it's two ideas we're going to be dealing with. And because of that, you have to remove that weak and inferior skin, yes, to expose or come into the heart. Yes, that has given. This is the concept of the ritual of circumcision, and that has come into religious knowledge. There is the actual removal or the actual act of circumcision may be due to hygiene and cleanliness, not having this religious ritual of the removal, showing the removal of the influences or the inferior form of man. We say the flesh that's weak, that's inferior, that's born in sin, the sinful flesh. It's a ritual in religion where they're saying, in the sense that revealed knowledge makes it acceptable, and the person is born again with revealed knowledge. We have it in both, but in one we have the idea that the flesh is weak, the flesh is sinful, that outer skin, but that the heart is not. So we want to expose the heart. We want to remove the flesh and to expose the heart in the social life, in man's social life. So it's the removal of the foreskin, the first sensitivity, to allow a deeper sensitivity, to allow the sensitivity of the heart to really to be the skin that interacts in society as a born again person, influenced by revelation, that we say, even in Islam, that the Quran is revealed on the heart. Both are Bashar. One is saying Bashar is the outer skin, or what the dictionary gave us Bashar as the outer skin and the inner skin. Let's see what the Imam is going to give us. Now, looking at the inner skin also, or looking at the heart, the Islamic idea that all flesh is good. The outer flesh is not bad. It comes into the world and it's influenced by the bad. But in its origin, it's not bad. And we all have the same origin. Muhammad the Prophet is saying that. I'm the same, we're all of the same origin. We're born good. We're not, the flesh is not weak. The flesh is strong. It's elastic. It doesn't break. You eat, you get fat, the flesh just stretches. And it doesn't hurt when it stretches. You never hear someone say, I'm so fat, my flesh, my skin hurt because I've stretched it too much. It's strong. It's going to hold. It's going to hold. And you can keep eating and eating and eating. The woman can get pregnant and the body can just stretch way out. She never said my skin hurt. If I eat one more biscuit, I'm going to tear open. No. So where this is looking at the picture of flesh, we get the idea that it's weak. It's not weak. It's good. It's strong. But it's, yes, in terms of it can be influenced. It shows that how it can be influenced. It's sensitive. Very sensitive. But it's also the protection. It protects the inner sensitivities. Yes. The heart, it pumps. Its flesh is protecting the heart. The outer flesh protects the inner flesh. It's a protection for the heart. Yes. So it has to be, it's born clean, pure, good. Yes. And we have to keep it clean, pure, and good. That's why when we make the wudu, we have to take water that's sensitive and put it on the skin. It has to be on the skin. According to the rules of the application of wudu, water has to be put on the skin. If you have something on your skin that prevents water from touching it, some of the scholars say you're supposed to remove it. That's why they give women a hard time about having makeup and fingernail polish. Because they say the fingernail polish has to be removed to make the wudu. Now, this is what some of them say. Because of the skin. You have to make sure it touches the skin. It's a ritual. But the idea is to keep, you want the skin clean. Yes, that's the outer flesh. When you're making the prayer, now you want to clean the inner flesh. Both of them you're cleaning. You want to keep clean, the outer flesh and the inner flesh. You want to have both. Keep your sensitivities clean. It's a protection. Now, the heart pumps the blood. It's pumping blood throughout the body, and it's the skin that protects it to prevent the blood from just going any and everywhere. You know, I work with power electricity. And in power electricity, people have gotten electrocuted. And it's not when you get hit, as we use the language, by the electricity, it can go in one part of the body and come out the other part, following a path to ground. Electrical jargon. But what I want to say is, a lot of times, it's not the electrocution that kills you. Now, sometimes it may hit the heart and stops the heart Yes. But there are times when it could go in you and come out. But what happens when you get burned? That's one way. But when you get burned by it, you can get burned. If it burns, uh, different degrees of burning. But the idea is if it burns the skin, if it burns the outer skin, what what kills you is not the burning. What kills you is you don't have anything to restrict the fluids of the body, to hold the fluids in the body. And that's you die more from losing the fluids in the body than you do from the actual burn or the actual electrical hit or what have you. Now it can affect the heart. If the electrical pulse go across the heart, it can stop the heart. But if you get hit with people have gotten in explosions, you're in an explosion. I've seen it, I've experienced it, but I didn't get burned deep enough. It burns the skin off. Once you burn the skin off, you can't hold the fluids. You can't hold the blood. You can't hold water. You can't hold the fluids in the body. That's really the purpose. That's one of the greater purpose of the skin, is to protect the body, their inner body, that flesh, the flesh and blood, the fluids that's held inside. It's a check. Another connection. Some people in their sensitivities go unchecked. Talking about in man's social life now. So it holds the heart, the knowledge, the science, so forth and so on. Because we have associated in our teachings that the heart is the heart that holds the knowledge, the sciences. All of the sciences are in the heart. That's why everyone wants to get to your heart and influence your heart. Satan wants to influence your heart. So you have to protect the heart. The heart has to have protection. So your protector has to be very sensitive. Yes, we said when the soul interacts with the ruh, with the spirit, the heart comes alive. In all of this, like a pool. In that pool is all knowledge and science. The foundation of all knowledge and science is in the heart. And the heart serves as the validation for all science and knowledge. So it has to be protected. Because if it's corrupted, your thinking, your science, your knowledge, it all becomes corrupt. As we have been talking about today. So we have to have sensitivities that would not only lead us to knowledge and science, but it would also protect us in knowledge and science. Yes, we have to have both. Yes. So we have this as a sign in our social life, in religion, that the man has hair on his chest. The woman don't have hair on her chest. She have hair on her arm, but she don't have hair on her chest. Because it protects the heart. It's a sign protecting the heart. That when you get close to the chest, the hair sets off an alarm. And it lets you know something is trying to get to your heart. The woman has the kimar, we call it. She takes her shawl or a cloth and drops it over the breast as a protection protection for her heart. Someone wants to get to your heart. It protects you. That's the sign. It's a sign. Yes. So also, these sensitivities that protect the heart, also is sensitivities that we have to have in order that we come into knowledge and science. You just can't come into knowledge and science by intellectual urges alone. You also have to have sensitivities, starting with the outer sensitivities that lead you to the knowledge and science, curiosities. Yes. So in conclusion, look at the readings and we'll discuss it tomorrow. The basher is this outer skin, he's saying. The Imam is saying in this writing, the basher is the outer skin. And others have shown it in the sources that we looked at. They were showing that how man was responding to the basher in terms of his outer skin, the outer sensitivities that man is placed in his social life. Yes. And that man has both. He has the material, the outer skin, that's related to the outer skin, and he has the spiritual relating to the heart. They both makes up the social life. Therefore, we don't strip ourselves of the material life. We don't have a circumcision in our material life in order that we only have a spiritual life. The Imam, we talked about the leaders, the Imam, the Prophet. They are not spiritual beings. They're flesh and blood basher. They're basher like all others. They're not spiritual beings. They're not spiritual leaders. They're basher. We talked a lot about it yesterday. We'll make the connections tomorrow in our reviews and in our discussion. I thank you for your time. Assalamu alaikum.